I'm a immigrant from Canada. I'm part of the vast migrations of gay people that took place in the mid-1970s, when all the tops went to New York and the bottoms came to San Francisco.
That was Sister Mary Media. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. So once again, I'm here with Michelle, the photographer, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it was like to meet Sister Mary Media.
So Sister Mary Media invited us into her beautiful apartment in the Panhandle. She had tea and biscuits ready for us. She was a wonderful hostess. We started out with photographs, got some beautiful shots of her in her home, and then went down into the Panhandle and had a lot of fun climbing in trees and taking fun photos. This project with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence has just been a true joy photographing these ladies and what they give to the community. They couldn't make it more fun, for sure.
Yeah, and in this episode, you're going to hear Sister Mary Media talk a lot about the social and political context in the late 70s that kind of the sisters were spawned out of and into kind of before they started really doing charity work and getting involved with AIDS and awareness and stuff like that. So without further ado, here's Sister Mary Media.
I guess because in Canada there's this sense, even though I was a queer activist and I was manager of a gay bookstore and I was involved with gay organizations and stuff in Canada, but there still always was back then, and it's probably not the case anymore, but there was back then a sense that when you're in Canada and looking south, it's like you have your nose pressed up against the window of where the culture is being created. And I wanted to be part of creating that culture that was being birthed especially in San Francisco, the sort of queer countercultural gay political and artistic scene. So that's what got me here.
Where in Canada were you?
I grew up in Montreal. I lived there. I lived in Toronto for a while. I lived in Vancouver for 2 years on my way.
Do you want to do this podcast in French then?
No. We won't do that. We won't. My French is
I wouldn't be able
rusty.
To answer anything,
yeah,
but it'd be
my French
cool.
is pretty rusty, but I'm English Canadian. Okay. I'm one of what the French call the maudit anglais, the damn English. And so I'm not a Quebecois.
But that is interesting. Again, what you said about kind of that cultural split back then of tops going to New York, because you were right there. It wasn't geographical. You came to San Francisco for a reason, because it would have been probably a lot easier to go to New York. But
it would have probably, yeah. But I had never been to San Francisco. It was just I knew of some people who had moved here, and what I heard about the place. San Francisco just has this cultural siren call, right? And even never having been here, I knew this is a place that I wanted to see for myself. And once I've been here, I knew that this is where I wanted to live, and so I made that.
How did you, like, TV, magazines, movies, like how before you came here? How was it that you heard about?
Yeah, TV, magazines, movies, all of those. Yeah, all of those things. And in queer culture, this is where things were happening in the arts. It was also happening in Boston to some extent, and certainly it was happening in Canada. It was a political thing. There was a gay political movement in Canada, but here is where I guess it was happening more. There was an integration of the arts with the political that I didn't get a sense of in New York. Maybe if I had gone to New York, I would have found something like that. And Boston was probably very similar in that way, because it was Fag Rag was being published in Boston, but it's California, and
you don't have to tell me. I moved here too.
I guess seeing those pictures of those Beach Boys, and it's like, I guess. And then you get to San Francisco and realize it's not California at all.
Where's my sweater?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why did I leave all my sables at home?
What year was it that you moved here? Must have been before
I moved
79.
here in 78.
78. Okay.
I started coming here in 77. As I said, I was living in Vancouver at the time and started visiting for extended periods. I had a job that allowed me to visit for months at a time, and I started doing that. And so I was here when Harvey Milk was elected, and then of course when he was assassinated, and Jonestown happened, and all of the. I mean, so much happened in that short period of time. Like 77 to 79, including the founding of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And so, there was also a sense of California was a place where spirituality was also kind of a factor, maybe in the queer scene. I didn't know exactly how it would be incorporated, but I had a sense that people had started writing about the spirituality from a queer perspective, and they seemed to be based here.
And that was another draw.
That was certainly another draw for me. Yeah.
Did you have a religious background, or?
Not really. I had a fundamentalist. I grew up in a fundamentalist
just like
Sunday
Heather.
School. It was. I mean, there was a period of my life where I was terrified to go to sleep because Jesus was coming tonight. If he comes tonight, I'm doomed for eternity, And it's really horrible the way kids are brainwashed,
right.
And like to be afraid to fall asleep because you'll never, when you wake up, you'll never go to sleep again.
Oh my God. But okay, well, maybe not so much religious, but spiritual. Like
there was definitely a spiritual draw to me. I didn't know exactly what it was. I had started meditating a little bit, and I bought a book about Buddhism and sort of did what I could on my own. But I didn't have a community. I wasn't involved in any spiritual community.
Like organized or
organized or even unorganized. The people I hung out with were pretty much activists, political activists. So,
do you want to speak to, and you don't have to by any means, but before we get into the founding of the Sisters, you mentioned the Milk, but both the election and the assassination and Jonestown. I mean, you had just you were fresh off the boat or airplane, and all this stuff was happening. What was that like?
Well, that's an interesting question, because for me, I wasn't really invested in electoral politics. To me, politics was more radical than that. I mean, that change, if fundamental change was going to come, it wasn't going to come through the ballot box. That was sort of where I was coming from. And so Harvey Milk was great, and I supported, it was thrilling that somebody was elected and openly gay on the board of supervisors, and that he was generating this excitement in the community. But for me, the real political change that had to come about was going to happen from kind of more radical organizations than electoral parties.
Got it.
And so, but that being said, there was still very much a sense that things were changing, that well, while you're waiting for the revolution to happen, it's great that if you can have some influence at City Hall, and not just at City Hall, but Mary Media would say, in the media, and visibility is really important. And the fact that gay people weren't just being visible to each other, but that we were living in a city where, Tales of the City was being published in the daily newspaper, and visibility and gay people were being integrated and accepting kind of responsibility for the functioning of society.
Yeah,
it wasn't just a belief in a better world somewhere down the road. Right. It was like, well, we need a pooper scooper law, as Harvey Milk. That was his main piece of legislation.
Yeah. Would you say? I mean, I feel like the contemporary term would be representation, but that, if you want to generalize, like the gay community was taking the reins of their own representation and doing a better job than they had, or than society had let them do, like they're smashing down stereotypes and that kind of thing. Would you say that was happening?
I would say that was happening, and it felt like it was happening not just like, okay, we have to do this, we have to organize politically, and like and that was sort of the agenda, and that was like the focus. That was just another aspect of things that were happening in every field of human activity. It was like there was a march. Somebody starts a marching band. Mm-hmm. Somebody starts a queer pom-pom group, like cheerleading group, and
the Cockettes.
The Cockettes, and then the leather scene starts kind of codifying into, like, gelling into something with its own culture and its own kind of rules of engagement, shall we say?
Okay.
So the politics was just a part of like a whole renaissance that was going on, where queer people belong in every aspect of human endeavor, and here was a city where it was possible to do that. Right. Like, it seemed like New York, like a place like New York, maybe there was so much intransigence. It took them how long to get a gay rights law passed in New York, or a domestic partners law passed in New York. Whereas in San Francisco, it was on a scale that you could participate. Right. You could like make a change. Mm-hmm. You could influence things. Mm-hmm. Well, every religious institution has its diverse origin myths, shall we say. So depending on who you talk to, you're going to get a different, let's say, emphasis on where it started. For me, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the group that we're talking about, was it did come about from that cultural ferment that was happening, and that connection between spirituality, politics, and sexuality that that really came together at the very first fairy gathering, the Radical Fairy Gathering, which happened on Labor Day weekend of 1979.
Okay.
Now, before that, three guys had put on nun's habit and gone out to Land's End on Holy Saturday in 1979, like 4 months before the Labor Day.
Which is the day between Good Friday and Easter, is that right?
Correct.
For those of you
who
didn't grow up
all
Catholic.
That religious indoctrination paid off. Yes, so it was Holy Saturday, 1979. So that's why the sisters mark our founding from on Easter weekend.
Got it.
of that year. So, okay, so three guys went out, put on nun's habits. One of them was in whiteface. They got fabulous reactions. It was like, okay. And then so over the course of the next few months, they would occasionally do it again, like going out on Castro Street or wherever. But they had these habits that were brought from Iowa, allegedly from a or not returned to a convent that lent them to a production of Sound of Music. But
nice Catholic pun there, lent them.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay. Yeah, I meant to say that. But for me, it was like the Sisters is about the consciousness of bringing a group of people together for a specific purpose. Of the founding of the order, like gay guys have done nun drag from time immemorial, I would say. Okay, so you do nun drag. That's great. And I'm not in any way taking away from that. But what led to the founding of the order was a change in consciousness that happened over that Labor Day weekend at a spiritual gathering for radical fairies that was organized by Harry Hay and some other people that took place in the desert in Arizona.
Okay.
It was a call to people who were interested in politics and queer politics and spirituality and paganism, I guess, was sort of the aspect of spirituality that was most prominent. Going to that gathering was like a giant step outside the patriarchy. It was like a different culture. Harry Hay, who organized it, was the founder of the Mattachine Society, which is an early gay rights organization, like I think the first gay rights organization in the States.
Oh, wow.
And so he felt a need to take it further. And so for him, he felt that queer people have a different way of experiencing the world, of seeing the world, of filtering the world from the dominant culture. And so he wanted a space where we could experience that together, and thus that gathering. So a bunch of people who sort of knew each other a little bit in San Francisco were at that gathering. When we came back to the city, we, having experienced this kind of transformational moment in our lives, and I know I'm not really describing like what the nature of the transformation, but it was just this sense of, we don't have to conform to masculine, clone, heterosexual versions of gay people and say we're just like of males, and say we're just as male as anybody else. That was our take. Was no, we're sissies. We don't conform to that, and we don't want to conform to that. And so when we got back to the city, it's like, how do we take this different take on being queer and do something with it? How do we make something happen with it? And so Agnes DeGarin was one of the people from the gathering. He had dance classes that he got us to do dance classes together. He had a dance company that because he had this nonprofit dance company, he was able to take advantage of a program that the city of San Francisco had at that time called the Costume Bank, where if you had a small theater company, all you had to do was give them like a token, like $5 a costume, and they would make the costumes for your theater productions. Wow. So that's what he did. He got them to make a bunch of habits for us. So how do you not love a city that provides you with drag?
Exactly.
So
Was Agnes one of the first three?
he was one of the no, he wasn't one of the first three.
Okay.
But he's considered one of the four, the Fab Four, the four founding members. One of those three was not. I mean, he was a novice, but he didn't want to pursue being a sister.
Okay.
He was just out to have fun.
And then who were the other two?
And the other two were Fred Brungard and Ken Bunch.
Okay.
So sister missionary position. And at the time, Sister Adhanarisvara, since rechristened Sister Vicious Power Hungry Bitch.
Oh, yeah.
And then Agnes was Sister Hysterectoria. And the fourth person was the Reverend Mother, the abbess, who wasn't the Reverend Mother of the group, but exuded that energy. Everybody who knew him, even before the Sisters was founded, referred to him as Reverend Mother.
Okay.
So he was just this beautiful, compassionate, engaging soul.
Okay.
So those four lived together in on just a couple of blocks from here on Ashbury and Fell. And another group of us lived around the corner in another house called the Brain Trust, not ironically in any way. So a group of us lived together there. There was maybe 7 or 8 of us who were sisters. So we had these two houses together, and so we had the habits made, and then events started presenting themselves. So we started going to demonstrations. At that time, the Christian fundamentalists were coming to the Castro and Polk Streets, another gay area at the time, and doing their, you're going to pay for this, God doesn't want you to do this and stuff. So we went down. So they were coming down like every week and doing this preaching against the burgeoning visibility of homosexuals, and we went down and we confronted them in a very gentle way. We started dancing. We brought a boombox and just started dancing around them, and we didn't it wasn't a militant, in your face, threatening violence. Kind of
chanting
engagement. It was just dancing, chanting, and showing that there was a different way, and maybe a non-masculinist way of dealing with the situation. So that was it. I mean, basically, it was a group of people who didn't buy into the need to be the masculine ideology that was kind of prevalent in the gay community at that time.
That was Sister Mary Media. Join us Thursday when Mary Media will talk more about what the sisters were up to in their early years, and she'll walk us through the 40-year history of the group. Music for the podcast is by Otis McDonald. Film photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date on everything we do. Find the 60-plus past episodes on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If that happens to be Apple Podcasts and you have a minute to spare, please rate and review the show for us. Send comments or suggestions to storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.